Good morning, everyone. Everybody needs some friends. Friends are very important to us, especially when you grow older. You may not have many, but they are very, very important. While you are young, you have many friends, but sometimes the friendship can be very shallow. Friends of whatever degree, they are important to us. So it says that a friend in need, am I saying the right thing? A friend in need is a friend indeed. I'm not sure whether indeed is one word or separate. But anyway, what it means is that we all are in need at some time of our life. And we all need friends. So a good friend will be there for you. And this is very, very important. Sometimes we take things for granted. Sometimes we just, seeing the things around us that we have every day, and we are not careful, and we are not thoughtful and being thankful. And sometimes when we take people and we take their love, their kindness for granted too. And many times we also take God for granted. We assume that, God knows everything. There's nothing for me to say. But God's kindness, God's forgiveness, and His love that's so deep, and all these should stir us up to be thankful to God. I want to see the Good Samaritan. I'm very sure you know this parable, but I want to take a look at it from a different angle and seeing it a little bit differently. So you know that this poor man was beaten up while he was going from Jerusalem to Jericho, and robbers and thieves they beat him up and took everything and even hurt him so badly, and he was dying, lying there by the road. And the story goes saying that there was someone who was supposed to be well respected in the church, a priest. And that priest went by and looked, bye-bye. He didn't do anything. And then came the second man. And this is a Levite. A Levite should be someone, assisting the priest. He's an assistant there. And he went a little bit closer and take a look. Oh, so terrible. I better not do anything. Bye-bye. And now, the third person coming by, it says, is a Samaritan. But this Samaritan, it says, is a good Samaritan. And Jesus intentionally made this story, that this good Samaritan, when he came, he saw what he saw, and his heart was touched. And this is very important. And there it says in Luke chapter 10, verse 33. But a certain Samaritan came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. And that's the word. He had what? Compassion. And that's the thing that drew him close to that man. But the other two, no compassion. So they walked off. So my question is, in this short story, question number one, who are we in this story? Who are we in this story? You think of yourself and consider, who exactly are you in that story? And I'm very sure you might think that Maybe I could be the first person, second person, or third person. But this morning, I want to see it from the perspective of salvation. That we are actually that victim. We are being beaten up. We are bleeding. We are suffering there. And nobody came to help us. And we could not help ourselves. So we, in that position, lying there, waiting to die. Can you understand what I'm saying? If you are in this kind of wretched, dying position, how would you feel? But the story says there came a good Samaritan. Now, who does the Samaritan represent? Who do you think? Who do you think this good Samaritan should represent? You know, when Jesus asked that lawyer, who do you think is the neighbor? Or should I say a good neighbor, a friend to that dying man? And the reply was, the one who showed mercy. The one who showed mercy. And then Jesus said what? Go and do likewise. That means I feel strongly that if I were to take the Good Samaritan as Jesus, it fits in well. Jesus is the best Samaritan. You know, that was the Jewish land, but Jesus coming from outside, going in, a Samaritan, a foreigner, and helping the local person. And don't you see that Jesus, being the Son of God, coming from heaven all the way down, he is not part of us, but he came all the way down and to be the Good Samaritan. He is indeed the Good Samaritan. And the story ends by saying, go and do likewise. Jesus came to this world, seeing us suffering, bleeding because of robbers, thieves. Satan and the demons, they are thieves. We are sheep. And the thieves, they come to destroy. And we are suffering. And on top of that, we are also taking in a lot of lies, our own lies. So we are suffering because of the distortion in our thinking. We are bleeding. So Jesus, he comes in to help us, to cleanse and to make us get well, healing for our body, for our soul. And now he's saying, go and do likewise. When we get well, we should be doing the same thing as Jesus did. Now, 175 years ago, something happened. Something that we, as Seventh-day Adventists, that we should not forget. And we must not forget. Because that's our identity. They're so important. A few more days, it will be October 22nd. What happened was the 2300 year prophetic countdown happened in the year 1844. And everybody was excited. And they were expecting something. As the days were getting shorter and shorter. And then they were waiting for second coming of Jesus, October 22, 1844. It's just a few days away from now. It will be exactly 175 years. We have waited longer than Noah. But Jesus isn't here. And so they were also waiting. And they thought Jesus must come because the prophecy was so accurate according to their calculation. And they said, this must be the day that Jesus must come. The exact day, October 22, 1844. But did Jesus come? No. Jesus didn't come. So there was a great disappointment. Many were so disappointed that they left the church. The great disappointment. Now it says, then I took the little book. In Revelation chapter 10, verse 10, it says, then I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it. And it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. So you have two opposite flavors, two opposite tastes. One good, one not good. Good here while you are chewing it. But later on, the feeling is not good. So that's the great disappointment. It became bitter when they were studying the book of Daniel. We know the history well. Now, why Jesus did not turn up? That's the question. Why didn't he turn up? And actually, when many left, there were two groups left behind. Two small groups. And one small group later on died. No more. And only the other one, the little flock, about 50 of them. But today it has grown up to our Adventist church worldwide. Is it an accident that out of two, one is still surviving? Revelation chapter 11, verse 19. Here it says, this is after chapter 10. Here it says, then the temple of God was opened in heaven, and the ark of his covenant, and the ark of their covenant was actually where? In the most holy place, okay? So it says, was seen in his temple. So chapter 10, something happened. Chapter 11, it is moving from the holy place in chapter 10 now to chapter 11, the most holy place. And what do you see in the most holy place? Okay. Of course, you see the law there. We need to have the law. If we don't have the law, we cannot judge. Now, here, only once a year, on the day of atonement, the high priest could go into the most holy place. Once a year. So when that was open for John to see, and John, he knew that is where the high priest must have gone in. Who is the high priest? Jesus, of course. So instead of looking down for a sanctuary, they should be looking up. No wonder Jesus didn't come here. Because Jesus was not coming down. He was actually going to the heavenly sanctuary. And we have been preaching that time and again for 135 years. We have not changed our message. We have not changed. And even many Christians say this is not true, but we are very biblical that we can even show that we are still preaching the same. And this has to do with the coming of Jesus. And it's so important. When I talk to some of my Christian friends, and I said, I think Jesus is coming back soon. Are you sure? And they say, are you sure? I said, yeah, I think should be, seeing what's happening in our world. I said, no lah. Maybe 100 years from now. Oh yeah, 100 years from now is not to me. I don't know to some, but not to me is a bit long, because if we as Seventh-day Adventists we are the prophetic church, and our church actually came out from the prophecy. So we are very careful about seeing the events and things. We have some understanding, but many Christians, they don't. And other kind of teachings that are a bit confusing, not to us, but they believe is true. See? So once a year on earth, the high priest must go and clean up the sanctuary. That's called the Atonement Day, Day of Atonement. Now, Daniel chapter 7, verse 10 and 11, it says, I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. This is a very, very great figure. Huge number of people, angels, standing before him. Doing what? And then it goes on, verse 11. It says, the court was seated and the books were opened. So this is a court scene. This is something to do with judgment. The Ancient of Days must be God the Father. His throne is where? In the most holy place. So from Revelation chapter 10, we actually saw Jesus after the 2300 day or year prophecy going into the most holy place. From the holy place going into the most holy place in chapter 11 of Revelation. And now here you find in Daniel that John took the book to eat, and he was feeling bitter in the stomach. And there was a great disappointment because they were looking at the wrong place. The calculation was right, but the event was not too accurate. Daniel 7, verse 13. Now we see another figure. It says, and behold, one like the Son of Man. Who is this person? Only Jesus is given that title, Son of God and Son of Man. He said, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. And you can see time and again that Jesus was with the clouds. Even when he ascended, the clouds took him up. So this Son of Man, Jesus, and it says that he came to the Ancient of Days. That means Jesus, the Son of God, now he is coming to God the Father. And there were thousands and thousands of angels standing there, opening books. And they were looking into all these names and cases. Why all this kind of thing going on? You'll see that even from the very beginning, when sin came into the world, God must ask, must investigate before giving the verdict and the execution. And God spoke to Adam. How do you know that you're naked? How come you're hiding? And spoke to Eve. Then spoke to the serpent. Then the judgment came. Likewise, God must investigate so that God is fair. Because we have an enemy accusing God. If our God cannot be trusted, then we'll be worshiping him out of, uneasiness, fear. Daniel 7:14. Now you see here, it says, then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom, the one which shall not be destroyed. This is talking about after Jesus going to the most holy place to go through the pre-event judgment and to get the list of names belonging to his kingdom so that he can have dominion that lasts forever. Then verse 14 is the coming of Jesus. So today, Jesus is only Daniel 7:13. But someday, when everything is finalized with the list of all the people, he would come to claim his kingdom. That's verse 14. So Jesus didn't come on October 22, 1844, because he was actually going into the original sanctuary up in heaven, and the judgment was going on. Now, out of this bitter experience, God raised up the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That's why we are a prophetic church. It's not because we have prophecies, but we came out, our church, was raised. We were born out of this experience, out of this bitter prophetic experience. We came out from there. So we can find our root. We can pinpoint that this is where we started. This is where we started from there until today. Today we are reaching the end of the time of the end. Where we started is the beginning of the time of the end. So when people left, only about 50 of them, the little flock, left behind. And today, 2019, we are still going on. We are carrying on the Advent movement. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. That's Revelation 10:11. That's the last verse of Revelation chapter 10. So after the bitter experience, now the angel spoke to John. You have to prophesy again. That's why we are continuing that movement, and today we are still preaching the same message. And this is uniquely Seventh-day Adventist. All the 28 fundamental beliefs, this is the unique one. We stand alone here. Day of Atonement. So that day was actually the day of atonement down on earth. But up there, it means it's actually down on earth on the day of atonement. It was Judgment Day too. All the Jews would be very solemn. They would be very solemn. It's a Judgment Day. So, Day of Atonement, in a way it is solemn, but also in a way it is very good. Because we have someone whom we can trust. Atonement means at-one-ment. It means to be reconciled. Reconciled. There are two parties coming back. And this is what it means. Bringing two parties back to become friends again. God and man separated by sin. Now the two coming back again. How to bring the two parties back? One is a holy God. One is a sinful human being. How to bring the two together? We need a friend. Sometimes when two persons are not talking, they are not in good terms. You need a friend. You need a mediator. Someone who knows both parties. And Jesus, he fits in this role very well. He's 100% God, he's 100% man. And he is playing this role in the Day of Atonement. Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 14, verse 6. So there is no other way. It's very clear. Except through me. That I am the way. That's the only way. Nobody, no sinful human being can go and be reconciled to a holy God. You cannot. You'll be consumed. And the only way is through Jesus. John 12, verse 32, it says, and I, if I'm lifted up from the earth, will draw all to myself. So Jesus is talking about the day when he will be hanging there on the cross, and he will draw all. So when Jesus died on the cross, you can see the gospel message going throughout the world, and many people are drawn to Jesus. And if you're drawn to Jesus, you're drawn to God. Because this mediator is unique. This mediator is God. He is 100% God. There's no difference between God the Father and God the Son. But God doesn't want a mediator between Jesus and us. When you come to Jesus, you're coming to God. No difference. If Jesus didn't come to this world to die, and God the Father would be the one here, he would live for 33 and a half years the same way. No difference. And die on the cross for us. Now it says 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 18. And here it says, now all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself. God is bringing us to himself. How can God bring sinful human beings to himself? It says through Jesus Christ. That's the only way. Unless we have Jesus Christ, there's no way. Jesus is the only way. Some may not know it. If you are saved, your only way to be saved is through Jesus. Whether you know it or you don't know. You may not have accepted Jesus. But the Holy Spirit might be working in a way to make Jesus' blood available to you. And that's how you are saved. But when you get to heaven, you'll be wondering, how come I'm here? And when you look at Jesus, you understand how you get there. It's only through Jesus. Romans 5 verse 8, it says, but God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Can you imagine? God demonstrated his love. God the Father showing his love. And through his Son, he's drawing all to himself. To Jesus is the same as drawing to him. And this is the only way man can be reconciled to God. Because of love. People who are touched by God's love, they'll be transformed day by day. And God is not concerned the degree of transformation. One day, we all will get to heaven, and we have eternity before us to keep growing and growing. There's no end to our growth in spirituality, intellectually. There's no end. Because our brain is so powerful. Our brain functions horizontally, vertically. Now, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. And this is our scripture reading. So who is willing to die for you? It's hard to find a friend who will do that. It's only a friend who is the best friend will do that for you. Let's not take his love for granted. Remember, without him, nothing eternal can be possible. Everything is only earthly. No eternal value. It's only through Jesus, our best friend, that we have all. We have eternity. May God bless each one of us.